Jackets green were received and distributed over a 4-week period, 300 a week. Soon the point was alive with the color green. It's quite a sight on St. Patrick's Day parade to see 400 youngsters in their jackets going down St. Catherine Street, giving the old Leo's Boys song, "We Don't Care for All the Rest of Canada," or from Point St. Charles. I think many of them There's so much more that I'd like to share with you, but time is limited. In closing, I'd like to thank the thousands who embraced Leo's Boys through the years, adding greatly by their presence. In Leo's Boys, each boy and girl was expected to act as brother and sister, all from different families, making us all one family, Leo's Boys. God bless you all, and I ask you to keep the spirit of Leo's Boys alive. Thank you.
I'd now like to ask Kevin Bigsby to come back up for a special presentation.
Can I ask Greg Scholes to come up front and help me with this one, please? For many of you, you'll remember back in the 70s, the federal government had a program called Participaction. And the process behind and the reasoning behind was to get kids up and kids active. And over a number of years, that program kind of faded away, and education, physical education programs in school faded away. And now we're looking at a society where kids aren't as active as they were when we were kids in the 70s playing for Leo's Boys. And if you take a look this year with Canada celebrating its 150th anniversary, one of the programs that they brought back is the Participaction Program Canada. And one of the things we're doing at Hockey Canada is we're starting more and more to talk to organizations across the country and other national sport organizations about getting kids to become multi-sport athletes again. Not specific to one sport, but playing every sport so that kids are active. And we're asking communities across the country to make sure that they're providing those opportunities to the kids by working together. When we were kids, it was Leo's Boys Sports Association. Now it's such and such a football club, such and such a hockey club, such and such a baseball club. Associations don't exist anymore in communities as they did here in Point St. Charles. And we're working with other national sport organizations and with the International Ice Hockey Federation to make that a program around the world where kids play multiple sports and learn all the life skills that come from playing sports. And in doing so, I asked for special permission because that's one of my mandates, this program with Hockey Canada, to make one of the first presentations. And I'm going to ask Greg to help me with this. I had asked Ronnie, his brother, who can't be here, who, by the way, Mr. Mel sends his regards, his congratulatory note. And Ronnie's words to me were, please thank Mr. Mel and all the volunteers from Leo's Boys and coaches who inspired us to learn life lessons through sports. It was about the kids and will always be about the kids. And that's from Ron Scholes, former Leo's Boy, now coaching in the Quebec Major Junior League, former coach and gold medalist with Team Canada at the Under-18 World Championships, and former draft pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I have his brother Greg here with me to make this presentation, and I asked Greg because Greg, in all likelihood, would have played for our Team Canada World Junior team if he hadn't been injured. And Greg was a former draft pick for the Pittsburgh Penguins and came out of Leo's Boys Sports Association. The plaque that I'd like to present to Mr. Mel on behalf of Leo's Boys and all the volunteers here today from Leo's Boys says, on the occasion of the induction of Leo's Boys Sports Association to the Point St. Charles Hall of Recognition, Hockey Canada would like to recognize and congratulate the association and its many volunteers whose commitment and dedication have had such a positive impact on the development of the community's youth. Your selfless efforts provided many children with the opportunity to learn the valuable life lessons that only sport can provide. Your inspiration as an organization is truly Canadian, and as such, it is only fitting that the association's induction take place during our country's, Canada's, 150 celebrations. So, on behalf of Hockey Canada, I'm going to ask Greg to help me make this presentation to Mr. Mel in recognition of all the volunteers here today that made Leo's Boys the association it was and provided us as children the chance to flourish, grow, and to learn the valuable life skills that we cherish today. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to say I was one of the fortunate kids that through Leo's Boys learned how to skate across the street at Ash Park outside, and led me to a very brief but fun hockey career. I was able to play in the Quebec Junior Major League for 4 years. I did get drafted and went to a Pittsburgh camp. And a funny story, I became quite good friends with Mario Lemieux, not to sound silly for dropping names, but I remember his father would watch his older son play Matt Midget, then watch Pee-wee, then watch Bantam, then watch Pee-wee. And one time he said to me, do all you kids from the Point work this hard? And I shrugged my shoulders saying, I don't know, I guess so. And then when I played in the queue, I would defend my, well, not very tough, but I used to defend my best players, and I used to get beat up a lot. And my coach said to me, are all you kids from the Point fearless? And I go, I don't know if it's fearless, but boy, does my face hurt. And, I ended up going to the Pittsburgh camp, and the assistant coach, Jim Roberts, said to me, where are you from? And I said, Montreal. And he said, whereabouts in Montreal? I said, Point St. Charles. And he said, holy shit. He said, you must be one little tough effort. And then, Bill Mard, I became friends with Marc Bergevin also, and I hadn't seen him in over 20 years, and 5 minutes into our conversation, he looked at me and he said, boy, did I hate playing against those effing Leo's Boys. So, no, definitely Leo's Boys had their mark through other people in this community, and once again, congratulations, Mr. Mel.
Applause for Joe Mel and everyone involved. Our final speaker today is a friend and colleague. Stu Cowan has been a part of the Montreal Gazette Sports Department for more than 30 years. Hired by the legendary Red Fisher, he started out editing the scoreboard page back in the days before the internet. When Expos batting averages and other stats had to be updated manually on a calculator and punched into a computer after each game, he went on to become a reporter, editor, assistant sports editor, and for the last 2 years returned to his first love, writing, as the Gazette sports columnist, writer and producer of the very popular online sports show Hockey Inside Out. I have not received an invite to be on the panel yet, but I'm sure my invite will be faxed over as we speak. Please welcome Stu Cowan.
on that though. That's a great idea. I'm very lucky to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. I'm also very, very, very lucky to be sitting beside Mr. Mel, who is a living legend, obviously, in this community. He's wearing a tie today. It says "My Lucky Tie" with a shamrock on it. But I know Point St. Charles as a community is lucky to have him. Very, very lucky. For myself. For myself, as a young boy growing up on the South Shore, I remember going downtown and always seeing these kids wearing these Leo's boys jackets. I used to wonder, who's Leo, and why does he have so many boys? I later learned the lesson, I learned that those green jackets were for teams that were from Point St. Charles, or sorry, I should say the Point. Remember, I'm a South Shore boy, so. But I honestly didn't know the full history about Leo's boys until 3 years ago, when I was sports editor at the Gazette and edited a lengthy feature story that was written by Christopher Curtis about Leo's boys. I have to admit, I'm a little bit ashamed to admit that as a Montrealer, I didn't know more about the history behind Leo's boys before that. But the only thing worse would have been for me to never find out the full story behind Leo's boys, which Chris did a fantastic job of doing, and I thank him immensely for that. He's an outstanding young writer, and for anybody who hasn't read that feature yet, you can still look it up online. It's an interesting look back at the days at Ash Park and what happened with Leo's boys. I learned about the artificial rink at Ash Park, the late night shinny games that would go on there, where you had to keep your head up all the time, apparently. I also learned you always had to keep your head up if you were playing against a team of Leo's boys. Maybe the Canadians could use a few Leo's boys heading into this season. I'm not sure if Villamar's Marc Bergevin will agree with that or not, though. He experienced it firsthand, I believe, growing up playing against Leo's boys. I also learned about Joe Mel for the first time, Mr. Mel, who founded Leo's boys after his brother had passed away from leukemia as a teenager, and that's who Leo's boys are named after. I talked with Mr. Mel a little bit this morning about it, and his eyes still well up a little bit talking about it, but I'm sure his brother will be looking down today very, very proud of what's happened and the history of Leo's boys. In this day and age when hockey is so expensive to have a child play, it's great to know there was a time when people in the Point made it possible for every kid to play, whether they could afford it or not, thanks to Leo's boys. Kevin Figsby was telling me this morning about some of the fundraising activities and the tickets and the events that Mr. Mel talked about. He suggested there might have been some that weren't as legal. Maybe a hockey pool that would go on, but if the police did know about it, they would look the other way because they knew the money was going to go to Leo's boys. And couldn't think of a better cause. Christopher Curtis's article also taught me about those constant fundraising drives and how you never had to look far to find a road hockey game anywhere in Point St. Charles. That's the point. There were a lot of places like that back in the day, and I remember the same thing in Brossard, where I grew up, spending countless hours playing road hockey or skating on outdoor rinks until you couldn't feel your toes, but didn't really care. On the outdoor rink, you could also learn all the special skills needed to play hockey without special stick handling, skating, or shooting coaches like kids seem to have today for every specific part of the game. I grew up in Montreal, as I said, on the South Shore, as a Canadiens fan, but my favorite player was Bobby Orr. I still think the Bruins defense was the greatest player to ever play the game. Some people might argue with me with that, but I'll defend my point. I think he was the greatest player who ever played. My admiration for Bobby Orr grew even more after I read his book a few years ago that came out titled Orr, My Story. He wrote about how his minor hockey coaches never, this is his quote, drilled the fun out of the game or took away my passion for hockey. Or wrote, I have trouble imagining the coach of a group of 8 or 9-year-old players actually wasting time teaching systems. The greatest system any coach can pass along is allowing kids to create and refine skills. Or also wondered if any coach today would have allowed him to play his style of play. I don't think Michel Therrien would. Today, so many defensemen are told, this is Bobby Orr's quote again, today so many defensemen are told, beginning at a very early age, that the only smart play is to get the puck out of the zone and make the simplest play. Don't take risks, just chip the puck off the glass and out. For me, that's just boring. One thing that was interesting also in Bobby Orr's book, the first time he ever attended a hockey school, he was 18 years old, and that was as an instructor, not a participant. Instead, he talked about developing his skills playing games of 10-on-10 shinny on the Frozen Bay in Parry Sound, Ontario, where he grew up. Those games were probably a lot like the ones some of you might have played at Nash Park. Road Orr, after all, if you wanted to spend any amount of time with the puck on your stick, you had to learn how to stick handle through 10 opponents. That's a great environment for kids to develop skills while at the same time having a ton of fun. If you could hold your own in those scrimmages, then regulation games didn't seem so tough. In real games, you'd only have to get through 5 opponents, which seemed easy compared to what we were used to. Orr added, one of the best things about those shinny games is that there were no coaches or parents around. Parents today might, this is Orr again, wrote, parents today might be surprised to discover what kids can do if they are left to their own devices. I was speaking with Kevin this morning and he was telling me the story about as a kid, he used to hide in the snowbank after they turned out the lights at Ash Park, wait for everybody to leave, turn the lights back on and jump on the ice and skate again for 3 hours. I wrote a column about maybe 4 years ago, the day before former Canadiens goalie Gump Worsley was honored at this event right here. I spoke with his daughter, Gumper had passed away before then. She grew up in Beloit after her father left the Point and become a famous Hall of Fame goalie. But Leanne told me a little bit about her father. She said he would always correct people if they said, "Oh, you're from Montreal." He would always say, "No, I'm from the Point."